Well, that took a lot longer than I expected, is a thing I keep saying on these entirely too much, so let's just get right into it. Released in 2007, pretty much right alongside Michael Bay's Transformers, Transmorphers was by no means the first, but has become the most emblematic of the short-lived but culturally influential exploitation movie genre known as the mockbuster. Not exactly invented, but certainly honed to something like a craft by budget production label The Asylum, the idea evolved out of the direct-to-video market becoming less able to rely on rental shops running out of on-the-shelf product and opting to shift focus to... Okay, I get it. Let's talk about it, because yeah, I don't think any of us were expecting the first of these back after the pilots and the break would be Transmorphers, and that it would take this long, so that probably owes something like an explanation, given it's not exactly a priority thing, and I don't think anyone is really a fan of this specific knockoff franchise anymore, even as a joke. Like, did you know they even did another Transmorphers just last year to try and jump on Rise of the Beasts finally getting released? Yeah, that was a thing.
It's war again. Set to turn every piece of tech into a Q-bot within 12 hours.
Nothing digital is safe.
They're taking the form of robotic line.
But anyway, if you watch the other shows, you maybe know that the next episode was almost a movie called The Primevals, the long-in-development passion project of the late animation and effects mastermind David W. Allen that was finally completed and released this year over a quarter century after his untimely passing in 1999. Now, I ultimately posted both a review of that and an extended-length big picture framing it in the context of a lot of feelings I'd been having about a lot of things, one of which was Dan Olson's video about the work of fellow longtime YouTube pop commentator and indie filmmaker James Rolfe, aka the Angry Video Game Nerd, but really more about the way YouTube culture has evolved in some unpleasant directions in the way it views and treats creators like Rolfe and their work, up to and including Olson's realization that the analysis he was attempting was in itself possibly part of this very negative cycle of insecurity-driven projectionism. But another work that was gnawing at me from the inside, and yes, everyone was already ahead of everyone else and kind of figured out where this is going, that's intentionally meta on my part, good job. All year since I saw it, one where there's no question that it's both a movie and one of great substance, that's both very much on the same wavelength in terms of grappling with nostalgia, identity, insecurity, sense of self on a similar but wholly separate vibe that I almost had a whole tangent about in that piece, but ended up cutting because it was ultimately disconnected and just for a number of reasons didn't feel appropriate, and if there was a way to tie it in on just the vibes, it's not my place to do that tying. A man has to know his limitations, basically. Anyway, that movie, way to bury the lead, bub, is Jane Schoenbrun's I Saw the TV Glow, a dark drama with notes of existential horror and quasi-supernatural magic realism in the David Lynch Twin Peaks Mulholland Drive vein that at first appears to be pitched as a subtle big-screen riff on the web video analog horror trend and decidedly less subtle metaphor for the pain of grappling with gender identity in a hostile or uninformed environment, and the dangers of projecting or sublimating that struggle into pop culture for comfort to the point of self-obliteration, where it's very clear very quickly that there's actually nothing metaphorical about it. That's just the actual story of the film.
I don't want to alarm you. Do you remember a TV show we used to watch together? Sometimes the pink opaque feels more real than real life.
Maddie, it was a TV show.
Are you sure that's all it was?
So, this part is going to require a near-total spoiler warning about that movie, so if you haven't seen it yet, first of all, see it, and if you wish, go ahead and skip past the listed timestamps if you like. In the broad strokes, I Saw the TV Glow is a movie set in the 1990s and then early 2000s where Justice Smith's Owen is a teenager, at least at first, who's withdrawn and shy to the point of almost not speaking, whose only friend is Maddie, a similarly detached, slightly older girl, with whom he's formed an intense bond over their mutual fandom for a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Secret World of Alex Mack, Tomorrow People, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Nickelodeon, CW, Charmed, etc. style TV show about psychically linked teenage girls who fight monsters of the week. He has to sneak over to her house to watch it because it's a girl show and his dad is weird about that, and he has missing spaces in his memory as an adult as to whatever else he did when he was over there, possibly tied to the fact that Maddie wanted them to run away together. They're not a couple, she likes girls, he didn't want to, and when she disappeared one day anyway and the show was cancelled almost immediately after, leaving its storyline unresolved on a dark cliffhanger, his life settled into basic crippling mundanity. Years later, into Owen's young adulthood, Maddie re-emerges and tries to convince him that she has since discovered that they are, and in fact always have been, the two characters from the TV show, the two women, just so we're clear, trapped in a false reality, aka the real world, by the series' main villain, and that he should have sensed this the whole time because the gaps in his memory actually involved instances of him experimenting with gender expression during their time together. Owen viscerally rejects these assertions, seemingly in part because she also insists that correcting the situation involves a kind of ritual suicide pact on their part to activate, but since the whole tone of the film is that Smith's character is an unreliable narrator who is unreliably narrating his own unreliable narrative about how unreliable his narration is, essentially lying to us in the audience about lying to himself about what he's lying to both of us about.
Better, oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
It's not 100% clear where his memory, nightmares, false self-image in the present, and reality begin and end. How much, if any, of Maddie's supernatural explanations are meant to be understood as something she actually said, or part of the film's by then no longer subtextual allegory, i.e. Owen appears to be transgender and in deep self-denial about it, and has been coping by projecting that aspect of himself onto a nostalgic television show, but are we to understand Maddie's "we're actually girls from a television show" universe claim as more unreliable narration representative of the tragedy of his inability to accept the truth about himself, making her, Maddie, sound like a disturbed person offering an impossible, even self-destructive sounding solution he couldn't even begin to consider from his telling? Or is she genuinely disturbed, and thus her inability to offer genuine clarity he actually needs? In some ways only reinforce his nostalgic sublimation. I feel like it's supposed to be the first, and both versions would be tragic in their own right. Part of a broader story of either one or both characters being unable to truly find themselves in a world that just does not offer real answers to either of them, leaving them flailing. But I also recognize that I could be wildly off base in making this read of a film specifically about and from a perspective I may not fully grasp the complete specific intent of, as someone who can only really understand this perspective from the outside. So yeah, in any case, it is a very deeply good movie, even if my very, very rapid-fire description of its plot elements may have, let's say, not done it full justice, because this is not actually an episode about I Saw the TV Glow. You can watch my review on the website as well. But if you trust me on these things, I thought it was really something special and very hard to stop thinking about. In any case, at one point in the storyline, Jessica Smith's character is working in a movie theater, and the movie showing there is Transmorphers. Yeah, that's it. That's the justification for having one of 2024's best movies be the lead-in to the episode about this. It's a background gag in the movie, maybe, possibly, in fact, almost definitely, most likely because it's a low-budget indie movie, and how expensive can it possibly have been to get the rights to a clip from fucking Transmorphers? In the film itself, we're out of the I Saw the TV Glow spoiler section, so I'm going to be treading lightly here for everyone who skipped that part. It's a cute background joke of the type that accomplishes what it's supposed to in terms of very decisively grounding the scene in a sense of time and place. It looks enough like one of the Transformers movies and or other interchangeable noisy sci-fi blockbusters of the same era so as to tell everyone, okay, so it's roughly 2007 or so now if you're looking for a cultural marker, and the type of very nerdy film fan of a certain age that was likely to see I Saw the TV Glow first on the festival circuit before it broke out is likely to also be the sort of person who's aware of the somewhat infamous reputation of Transmorphers and other so-called mockbuster trend of the mid to late 2000s, so sort of a meme joke too, I guess. I've seen some people question whether there's a literal visual pun at play here, like, is it Transmorphers because it's a movie about the trans experience? And I don't think so. Like, that seems very unlikely to me. I haven't seen anyone involved say no, but also the title itself is never on screen in the movie, so I don't think that's the case either. And, well, again, it's not my place to say. It kind of feels like that's not the sort of joke that's considered okay in this context, and not just because it's not very funny. Like, I'm pretty sure this was a robot chicken joke once, and it was a long time ago, and it wasn't in one of the good sketches. But okay, devil's advocate. Is there, maybe, plausibly, any other sort of tacit, tangential, minor, only the real heads will get this connectivity between this deeply personal, independent psychodrama and the almost 20-year-old direct-to-video knockoff movie it uses as a background prop in one shot? Something, even something so preposterously obscure and arcane that could make somebody who for some reason slips into the very thin Venn diagram of frequently rewatches Transmorphers and day one ticket buyer for I Saw the TV Glow sit up and go, whoa, like the star of a thoroughly forgettable genre movie from 2005 just popped up for their cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine. Well, okay, I think this is about where we came in. Released in 2007, pretty much right alongside Michael Bay's Transformers, Transmorphers was by no means the first, but has become the most emblematic of the short-lived but culturally influential exploitation movie genre known as the mockbuster. Not exactly invented, but certainly honed to something like a craft by budget production label The Asylum, the idea evolved out of the direct-to-video market becoming less able to rely on rental shops running out of on-the-shelf product and opting to shift focus to competing instead with theatrical and television product. You see, the original business model for most low-budget direct-to-video or DTV movies in the eye-catch first, quality second exploitation game was that rental shops could only ever stock so many of the biggest titles, and there were only so many cable channels to air them otherwise. So if you were making the almost as good cheapo alternatives, you would time your production and release schedule around when those would be out for you to be the alternative to on shelves. Are they out of the real new movie? They might have a couple copies of the cheap alternative.
Change the living landscape of the planet as we know it.
Terminator.
But as mom and pops gave way to giants like Blockbuster that could fill shelves with hundreds of copies of the biggest hits and hundreds of premium cable channels appeared along with pay-per-view and then eventually the early streaming services like Netflix, by the early 21st century that model had to evolve. Enter the mockbuster. Movies that, if the terminology and concept existed back then, you'd pretty much have to say looked and felt like if procedurally generated AI movies were made by human beings instead of computers committing plagiarism, so still 100 times better than any work of AI quote-unquote art that's ever been or ever will be prompted still. Basically knockoff versions of bigger Hollywood productions like B-movie producers had always made, but instead of waiting to watch the actual movies to rip them off, the goal with a mockbuster was to look at the trailers or even just the poster and very quickly put together something that kind of looked like the same basic idea and get it into stores and rental shelves as fast as possible on the basis that maybe enough people would look at it, not that carefully, and think, oh yeah, I saw a commercial for that, I think, and grab it to turn a quick profit on volume. And the law of averages being what it is, most of these were disposable and middling, many of them are legendarily awful, but some of them are actually kind of interesting because hey, nobody's paying attention anyway, what if we try on this one? The whole thing barely lasted a decade in terms of being a big part of the rental business model because consumers generally got wise to it, and the studio that cranked the handle hardest at the game, the Asylum, pivoted to a more lucrative long-term deal cranking out low-end, bad-on-purpose monster movies for the Sci-Fi Channel that increasingly didn't need to rely on or reference other currently popular IP like Bermuda Tentacles or Mega Piranha. But for a few years, mockbusters were a whole thing, and no mock busted harder on the pop culture radar early on than Transmorphers, even though the movie isn't really anything all that special. Or is it? So, our setup. It's the future, roughly 300 or so years from the then present, and Earth has been conquered very, very quickly by aliens who used piloted mechs called Z-bots and have blacked out the sky and ruined the weather, driving the last human survivors into underground bunkers so every scene can take place either in basically interchangeable concrete rooms or the same strategically lit nighttime vacant lot. Human rebels are preparing a last-ditch assault against the invaders' communication tower, but to accomplish this, they need to capture a Z-bot and its pilot for study so they can figure out how to interface the technology that lets them read human minds and guess our battle plans.
There's one man who would be perfect for this assignment.
Don't you say it.
He's perfect and he would want to do it.
Why?
He's ruthless. He's cold. He thinks too much like them, not enough like us.
He's all thanks to all men, and maybe to one lucky gal. Wanna go to the prom with me?
The only hope to carry out this mission, a wild-card soldier who just kicked too much ass for his own good named Warren Mitchell, who was court-martialed for insubordination years ago and placed in cryogenic stasis as punishment. So if you were keeping count there, that's the combined plot elements borrowed from Terminator, The Matrix, Independence Day, Demolition Man, a little bit of Battlefield Earth, and since we've got to pad this motherfucker out to a full 85 minutes without using more CGI that we paid up front for somehow, also Star Trek, Starship Troopers, Battlestar Galactica, and every other quasi-military and/or naval sci-fi thing ever, because nothing pads a budget like having people in uniforms stand around in rooms and argue about internecine power conflicts among the guilds and hierarchies and rank and the councils to make it sound like anyone did any kind of world building in this piece of shit.
As part of my training as military historian, I review the combat history and personality profiles of all remaining officers.
The time for a direct strike has come, Mr. Chairman.
The director of the Science Guild is going to give military advice.
The Science Guild has made a technological breakthrough, and the time for our attack has come.
The chairman requests an update, General.
We're at war. How's that for an update?
That is unacceptable. I still need
With all due respect, there is no time for debate and deliberation.
You sold me out! You're a snitch! Louis, take him out!
But, where are the Transmorphers in there exactly? Did you notice they seem to be missing? The guys in the title and on the poster, the ones justifying the supposed existence of this whole thing, being called this so it can be on shelves while Michael Bay's movie is in theaters?
What the hell is that?
Them. They're in our communication system.
Blackthorn, get the hell out of there. It's a trap. Repeat, it's a trap. We are getting
of here now!
Holy shit! He's right behind us!
Yeah. The Transmorphers are just the most dangerous type of Z-bot. They can turn into tanks and sometimes look like random pieces of junk to blend in with the other actual junk that most of the planet looks like.
Take out the map!
That's it. Those are the Transmorphers. They're just one of the types of bad guy NPCs.
What?
You know what? Still better than Revenge of the Fallen. Or Terminator Salvation. Or Terminator Genesis, honestly.
The task we've been charged with is not an easy one.
Anyway, this is one of those jobs with big early 2000s, hey, good enough for Saturday afternoon TV a few years ago, CGI and blue screen tech is available at consumer prices or even less if you're in LA and your day job is doing effects for real movies energy. Psst, sidebar. That second one is how a lot of way too professional independent YouTube shows look so surprisingly good. Yeah, the energy where they basically try to make up everything on volume, just like they do with the releases. There's too many characters, way too many subplots, way too much dialogue, and far too much complicated stuff seeming to always be going on, even though there isn't actually all that much happening. But it always seems to be moving, even when people are standing still.
Hesitation guarantees casualty. When I give an order, you act quickly and decisively. Sergeant Tucker, step forward. Hit me. Sir?
The characters keep breaking off into teams and pairs and trios, having side discussions, forming alliances, doing backstabbing and reveals, multiple starts and stops at the Star Wars-style 3-stage parallel action sequence business, even though everything is happening in one exterior and charitably 2.5 interiors that all look like the same set of interiors. And if you think that sounds tedious, it's tedious. It's really, really fucking tedious.
I brought you these.
Thank you. You're a doll.
That's Commander Doll to you.
Smoke 'em!
Who do you want there?
All of them.
All of them?
You heard that, idiot.
Our story kind of goes like this. Mitchell, the unfrozen guy, has to lead a team of soldiers out into Transmorpher territory to capture a Z-bot, but there's some mild tension when he learns that his ex-girlfriend Karina, oh yeah, he's only been frozen for like a couple years, not like 70 like in Demolition Man. Anyway, Karina has moved on and is now married to his commanding officer, General Van Ryberg.
So it's official.
Yes. Warren. Stay away from her. She's made her decision.
Of course. I've only ever wanted her happiness. And if she is happy, so be it.
We were married 3 months after your sentence. Just keep that in mind. Dismissed.
Oh, it's a lady.
Huh, and yeah, this is a movie from 2007, so 8 years before legal gay marriage existed in the actual United States. So how about that? This is Transmorphers, out of all science fiction movies in the early aughts, going there as a looking ahead culture marker for, hey, look at that, this is how you can tell it's the future.
I can't lose you. I have a little faith. You won't. You don't know that. Not to them. Hey, not to them. And certainly not to him.
Transmorphers, the unsung progressive sci-fi trailblazer we never knew. Wait, hold on. Could that be what it's doing in I Saw the TV Glow? Like low-key Easter egg shout-out to unrecognized early 2000 representation in an LGBTQ movie from an LGBTQ filmmaker? Maybe? I mean, okay, you know what? I've heard stranger ideas. Huh.
I like girls, you know that, right?
Totally, that's fine.
What about you? Do you like girls?
I think that I like TV shows.
Hey, what's Transmorphers writer and director Leigh Scott been getting up to 17 years later here in 2024? Speaking of unfrozen, oh no, oh no, whew, oh that's
Oh, that's a shame.
okay, but you know, still interesting thing of note in a movie with not a lot of those things. Anyway, they do the mission and do capture a Z-bot, but there's more Transmorphers than they thought there'd be out there, so Karina and another soldier are now trapped out in enemy territory right near that big tower that's the main Death Star target for all this shit they've been doing.
What if they don't make it? They'll make it.
Oh, and when they do the dissecting the alien power suit scene from Independence Day part, they find out that there's nothing to actually dissect because the Z-bots aren't mech suits.
Not what you expected. We always theorized the machines were created by an alien race, but they are the alien race.
They're just robots with, I think the idea is, sentient techno-organic brains and body parts. There are no aliens. The robots are the aliens.
The legendary Esquilax, a horse with the head of a rabbit and the body of a rabbit.
Huh. Oh, okay. Different stuff going down inside under the skin. Is that maybe the reference we're looking for? If you know, you know. Okay, that's something to think about, maybe.
Make sense of this mess.
Yeah, guys, I know I'm reaching. There's not much in this movie. Okay, but probably not that either. But yeah, okay, the Transmorphers aren't piloted at all. The robots aren't driving the aliens. They are the aliens. Apparently in 300 years of never finding alien corpses or seeing an alien outside the robots once, they've never managed to put that possibility together, which actually doesn't change much of anything about the plan, really.
They are sentient, which means that they think for themselves on a moment-to-moment basis, but they do have overriding commands which come from a central computer system.
Like it adds some extra steps to the whole move the MacGuffin into the tower to blow all the bad guys up thing, but it's not some, oh, this changes what we thought we were fighting swerve like it might have been in Star Trek or something good, like, you know, where they go, oh, wait, this is sentient life, we can't turn them off then, it violates the Prime Directive. No, nothing like that. It's just they decided they wanted to do the Independence Day thing where they open up the alien, I guess. In fact, it makes so little difference since, you know, all of this is just supposed to remind us of Transformers, and the Transformers don't have pilots. They're sentient, remember? It's weird that it's even here since it's immediately overshadowed by an actual kind of fun twist. The big tower they've been building up to attacking. It's not going to stay in one place because it's not just a tower, it's actually a giant Transmorpher itself.
What was that?
Fuck it, you know what? That's really cool. I still don't know why Transformers that are buildings and or cities never made it into those movies, since it's definitely part of that franchise and would have been a huge moment, right?
Fortress Maxima! The colossal Headmaster Autobot City.
Look!
You're much more than the eye.
Terratons form above us and destroy Fortress Maximus!
But Fortress Maximus transforms again, this time into a robot so humongous a separate robot becomes its head.
Its powers off!
Oh, and another distracting thing, turns out humanity has an air force to help them deal with this problem. They just haven't really shown them yet, because I guess that would be more expensive animation.
Affirmative! We need air support!
Rand, take your squad to the gray line. Richter, you guys with me. Let's light him up. I got a bogey on my ass!
But it's also kind of problematic for the storytelling if you think about it, and granted, why would you be thinking you're watching Transmorphers? But like, they have fighter jets. Why have they been doing everything with ground troops this whole time?
We take these. Nice.
It's easy, 6 o'clock!
Hit it! We're almost there!
They're shooting at us!
So shoot back!
That just raises further questions!
Anyway, the thing they need the Z-Bot for isn't working, but they have a backup plan. Mitchell can complete the mission himself because he's actually been a robot the entire time.
I'm a perfectionist. I made you too human.
I've always known. I've always known.
Of course you have.
Well, that's fine, but I don't see how that affects...
Yeah, so earlier in the story when he first unfreezes, the only background we get about what's supposed to explain why Mitchell is such a badass soldier, but also why he was a wild card and rebellious,
Warren Mitchell is a wild card. He's not controllable.
Is that he's the only human who isn't a total nihilistic doomer about living underground and just fighting to survive. He kicks Transmorpher ass and wanted to kick too much Transmorpher ass because he can still experience hope instead of just wanting to scrape by and survive because he has dreams about seeing sunlight and warmth like the world used to be.
For the last 5 years, I've had a single dream. Of a world that doesn't exist. Of a world where you can see the sun. And every day, I bathed in its warmth and in its light. And now you've brought me back to a world that is cold and dead.
Except that's impossible, because it's been like 300 years of perpetual nighttime robot war, so nobody alive has memories of things like that. But Mitchell does, because he was programmed with memories in order to make him more human-like robot and a better soldier.
I made a machine that could hope. A machine that could dream.
And both his effectiveness, but also his erratic behavior, are manifestations of that true identity, sublimated into his unconscious dreams and conscious drive to win the future he dreams of, clawing its way out until he accepts the truth he's always suspected about himself and his identity.
What if I really was someone else?
Huh. Well, I'll be a son of a bitch. Okay. So I need to be really clear here. I am in no way saying that this extremely stupid movie from 2007, it works and they defeat the Transmorphers and the sun comes out. By the way, the ending is fine. Yeah, but I'm not suggesting I know for a fact that the incidentally bizarre quasi-plot point parallel present in said dumb movie means that it was intentionally the reason that it, rather than literally any other movie footage, was on that movie screen background in I Saw the TV Glow, an extremely not dumb movie from this year. I haven't seen anyone suggest that it is. I frankly haven't seen anyone else make this connection. I sincerely, honestly, rewatched this movie for this strictly on the basis of, hey, this got people talking about Transmorphers a little bit again. Clips from this franchise don't tend to get as heavily zapped with copy strike takedowns. I should put that into the rotation and bump it up and mention it because it's additionally an excuse to talk more about I Saw the TV Glow, which I wanted to do anyway, and then looking at it for tie-ins and angles that weren't grotesquely disrespectful in some way or just a throwaway joke. I got to that one part about Mitchell being a robot and went, well, okay, that's a heck of a cosmic coincidence if it is one.
I've lived my entire life as a human being, Doctor. Allow me to die like one.
Because I'm not arrogant enough to assume that I solved a secret reference here nobody else did. It probably is just a coincidence. But on the other hand, Schonbrun has been pretty upfront that a lot of early reads of the film that critics argued over as shallow or surfacey amongst each other were more right than they weren't. Like, I remember when it first dropped, there was a ton of film snob harumphing about mostly younger critics calling it Lynchian because, oh, come on now, you children call every weird movie Lynchian. This has no deliberate similarity to the David Lynch oeuvre. Can you even peaks? And then Jane Schonbrun was in interviews going, no, actually David Lynch and specifically Twin Peaks are all over my movie. It's a really obvious intentional reference. Like, Amber Benson from Buffy has an essentially non-verbal but crucial cameo, and it's very much on purpose. These two guys, somehow, even though you can't really know, somehow I knew the minute they showed up. I was like, that can't be them, but that has to be them. And it's them. So, I mean, non-zero chance? It sure would be something.
Hey, Mitch. You think being frozen for 5 years might chill you out a little bit?
Seems like you're always somewhere else lately.
it doesn't actually affect the movie in any way in the way those other references. Transmorphers is a quintessentially disposable movie apart from the kind of fun Tower is a robot twist and the now retroactively interesting Guy is also a robot twist. It does not really have a lot going for it. The Asylum by this point hadn't really transmorphed itself into the well-oiled mockbuster machine where cranking out the ripoff part was so easy that some actual humor and imagination could slip through, and paradoxically, the professional enough looking scope with the CGI and scale means it doesn't have the community theater just doing its best charm that a lot of the older knockoff direct-to-video movies used to have. You know, you'd get stuff like Corman's Black Scorpion movies where they clearly went, okay, look, this is Batman, but we can't spend what Warner Brothers is on effects or costumes or sets or probably even catering, but we can afford vinyl lingerie and answer the question of Joker or Two-Face with yes.
Well, well, well.
In a treacherous time.
Looks like somebody wants to play cops and robbers.
Fire. You're too late, Black Scorpion.
Did you really think you could win, Black Scorpion?
Looks like the gang's all here.
Feel the sting of the Black Scorpion.
It's in my nature.
Yeah, go ahead and laugh, but that franchise, that was 2 movies and a 22-episode TV show. I mean, even back in the 60s, a movie like Conga was obviously just British, we've got King Kong at home, but since miniatures are expensive, the monkey is only Kong-sized at the very end, so they pad the rest of it out with regular-sized mind control, gorilla murder, mad scientist, psychosexual melodrama, killer plant business, so that movie kind of rules.
Conga, the most fantastic beast of all time. Not since King Kong has a screen exploded with such mighty fury and spectacle. In the new process of spectamation and Eastman color, he grows in size and terror before your eyes. In a film that fills the screen with giant entertainment.
Whereas Transmorphers only really comes alive when the actors are having fun, and it doesn't look like most of them are having fun most of the time. It looks tedious, and it probably was. Everything is on autopilot. The outside scenes are people standing around pointing guns, yelling army stuff, and doing cover poses. The indoor stuff is just people scowling, yelling, or averting their eyes and whispering curtly to affect the idea that serious things are being discussed when it's mostly exposition to remind us what the plot is. I mean, even the mandatory, oh yeah, we've got enough women in the cast in a dormitory barrack set, so let's do this scene is super low effort somehow.
Step away from her face, Lieutenant.
Get away from my stuff, Captain.
Are you violating a direct order from a superior officer?
I'm violating a direct order from a coward.
Get on the floor! Get on the floor! You want to hit me again?
I mean, look, I won't say it's not sexy. That's a perfectly fine assemblage of young women who all rolled significantly higher stats on the model side of the model actress profession, so yeah, but it should be better than this, right?
Like that? You like that? You're lucky I will stop it! I will not tolerate this! We fight machines, not each other.
A few moments later.
I am still your CO.
Wow, this is a good movie!
Speaking of, not a ton of the cast here carried on to bigger parts otherwise, at least in front of the camera. A lot of them were before and after this tech, voice, and crew journeyman workers who also acted and produced and stuck with that sense, which largely tracks. Like I said, equipment and expertise from other jobs is a tried and true B-movie tradition. Probably the standout, oh, that's somebody right, names in the cast were Amy Weber as Karina, Eliza Swenson as Van Ryberg. Weber was briefly in the WWE before ducking out amid allegations of bad behavior on part of various higher profile performers that sounded credible back then and only sound more credible now. She was also on the Baywatch spoof Son of the Beach, and is kept pretty busy otherwise. Swenson is aka Victoria Mazzi, the lead singer of The Divine Madness.
If you're looking for some sort of inspirational pep talk, I don't have one.
One isn't needed.
Pim, the world we live in stresses me out, dude.
Really? Why?
just like never-ending, constant chaos. No, it never lets up. I hate it. It's not good.
Okay. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, it's not. You didn't do it. It's not your fault.
The Asylum eventually did get significantly better at making this sort of thing on a curve. Whatever else you think of their operation, the prequel, Transmorphers Fall of Man, has a different filmmaking team and a whole other aesthetic set in the present, and it's more of a straight-out alien robot invasion movie that sets more of the tone they'd run with as they transition into a workhorse for themselves in the Sci-Fi Channel in the 2010s. Ironically, their biggest and best-known success in that vein is probably what also closed the book on the mockbuster era, Sharknado, a movie they made for Sci-Fi after buying the rights to a concept art pitch poster at the American film market in 2013.
Storm's coming and it's coming fast.
Just can't sit back and watch this.
Tornadoes heading towards the airport. Too many of them. We're gonna need a bigger chopper.
Claudia, move!
It became an unexpected viral pop culture phenomenon and made ironic, cheesy on purpose Z-list cameo monster movies a much bigger cash cow than the mockbusters ever were, to the point where up until Mech Beast, the last time anyone had heard from the Transmorphers franchise was when one of them briefly showed up in Armageddon 2025, which came out in 2022. That was an anniversary movie for Asylum where a whole army of their various monsters from previous films attacked Earth all at once, like their own kind of Avengers or a bargain basement destroy all monsters pastiche.
We're being attacked by monsters from movies on this list. The Asylum title's from the top down.
It's these drones that are creating these creatures.
These things are aliens?
Here they come.
Massive shark just attacked New York.
The lives of millions of people hang in the balance here.
Get off my ship!
And yeah, there you have it. That's maybe a couple plausible connections beyond logistics of affordability for Transmorphers randomly popping up in I Saw the TV Glow, and definitely more discussion than I ever thought I or anyone else would ever get into about Transmorphers, a movie that is ironically not very good, in fact actually kind of difficult to power through even as an ironic watch, barely deserves to be the meta-ironic bad movie footnote that it is, and yet is nonetheless a movie that exists.
Tell Mitchell we gotta haul